Hey, God bless you, everybody. Not going to be before you too long. I just want to quickly come on here and give you a quick word of the Lord. So, I had this dream this morning, and at first I just thought it wasn't connected. It seemed like there was so many bits and pieces and scene changes. But the Lord, after I had the dream, He just began to tell me what it meant. So basically, the dream was I was sitting at a table, and it was like a get together or a little party or something. And I was sitting at the table and I felt out of place. And I wanted to say something or to try to get in the conversation, but I just felt like there was really no place for me to even say anything. I just didn't feel like I was a part of those people sitting at the table. And then off to the side, I could see college students. And, they was just being college students. They weren't really doing anything of note, but I just remember seeing them and knowing that they were college students and they were off to the side. The party got over, so I got up and I decided, it was time for me to leave, I guess, either to find my car or go home or whatever. So I get up and I start walking down this long corridor, this long hallway. And at the end of the hallway is a door. And on the door is all these different postings or papers about different social service programs, such as like welfare or I don't know, whatever you want to name it, just programs, assistance, that sort of things that you get from, say, the government to help you financially. But with all these different postings on there, there was some words in bold that said, no exceptions, no excuses. So I just looked at that. I was like, oh, okay. And then I was like, whatever. So I opened the door and I walked out, and I began to walk out this long, either driveway or road, and it was all this smoke. And I seen like officials there, and I was like, oh, is it a fire? And they were just like, they were like, yeah. And I was like, oh, okay, well, let me walk over here a little bit to get away from all this smoke. And on the left side of me, I remember seeing a armory. At least that's what I recall as a little girl being told, that it was a armory. Now I know the place in my neighborhood, but when I was younger, they used to have like tanks outside, from World War II. For whatever reason, they just have them out there. And I remember walking by that in the dream. And then I walked to the end of that road, and I was on Route 77. And I said, well, I didn't know what Route 77 meant in the dream, but I just ended up on Route 77, and that was the end of the dream. So when I woke up, the Lord just began to speak to me and tell me basically what everything meant. But the only thing He didn't explain was Route 77. And I found out later when I looked up on Strong's Concordance that meant free of charge in the Greek. So basically what the Lord is saying, I'm just going to start with the door, with the social service programs. Basically what the Lord is saying is that if you have, or you're in some type of social service program, that if they tell you they want that paper in by the 5th of the month, you better get it in by the 3rd. And you better have it postmarked date, take a picture of it, make a copy, keep the receipts, whatever it is, because it's going to be a point where they try to use that, and whoever the day is, they try to use that to get you off of the program. And once you get off, it's going to be near to impossible to get back on. So this is what the Lord was showing me. So if you are on some type of social service program, do not play with them. Same thing with college. If you have a grant for college and you're going to school on a grant or a scholarship, The scholarship might be different from from a federal program. If you are on these types of programs, do not play with these people, whatever the stipulation is. If they tell you that you need to have uh, I don't know, a 2.9 and you dip below that, they're not playing. So this is what God was showing me, is that do not give them any excuses to kick you off, because they're not going to let you back on. This is what the Lord was showing me. All right. So what also on the flip side, like I said, God was just speaking to me, and he, for whatever reason, he wants the black community to know that this education is a way out, or the education is a way out. That theme that has been flowing through the black community, that was a pure move of God. Yes, the Cosby Show, only it highlighted that. It highlighted that the Cosby Show in a different world. It showcased it on a larger scale, on a large scale. But that push to go into college to escape poverty, that was a pure move of God, and that was before the Cosby Show. You know, not that God is saying anything bad about the Cosby Show. He just wants his people to know that that was a pure move of God. And I can vouch for that myself. I remember being a little girl before the Cosby Show was even a thing. I remember just that ideal being instilled in me as a little girl, that education was the way out. Not necessarily college. I mean, you could put trade school in there or whatever, but it was just my it was how I grew up. And basically we weren't required. You could go to college if you wanted to, but it was just something that was told to me as a little girl, that that was the way, that was how a lot of folks came out of poverty, was through education. Even on like not just college, but even on a lower level, how education was just something that was just held very dear to the black community. So again, the ideal, the theme of going to college to get out of poverty, that was a pure move of God. That was something that was seen very early on in Black American history, was always this push for education. I remember the elders in my family always saying, they could not, that was the one thing that they couldn't take away, was, that degree or whatever it was that you got. But the Lord wants people to know that theme or that ideal running through the Black American community is and was a pure move of God, because God is saying that it still is a move currently of his to push education. So how does this all connect with what I saw in the dream? It connects because if there's certain grants and things that you're getting, you want to make sure you maintain that. Because a lot of people, black and white and everything in between, go to college and they incur all this debt to the point where you don't see any gain from it until years later, until you're done paying off all that college loan debt. So if you can get a grant, if you can get a scholarship, you want to maintain that. okay? Because that is never God's way to see his people buried in debt, okay? So also, I when the Lord was speaking to me, he just dropped the word hegemony into my spirit. I had no idea what that word meant. So I definitely knew he was speaking, because I don't say that. I don't use the word hegemony. So basically that just meant total domination, like total world domination or something like that. And I'm like, okay, then maybe that has something to do with the armory that I saw, and it has something to do with the college kids and drafts and stuff like that. So the only thing I can say is that, there's been a lot of talk lately about drafts and stuff like that. And what if the draft come back? In the past, not saying that this would be a current situation, but in the past, when there was war, if you were in college, they would allow you to escape the draft, at least for a little bit while you were in college. That could be the connection. I don't know. But with me saying that this is a pure move of God, and that's not me saying that, that's what God told me, that going or seeking higher education was and is a pure move of God. If that is something that you want to do, or your kids want to do, and they desire to go to college, nobody's forcing you, and maybe the college, prospective college student is thinking about going to college, I can just say that if the said person was in college, if there was a draft, that would be one more thing that would most likely help to protect against a draft. But that was back in the day. So who's to say if a war was to come upon us this time, if the rules wouldn't change? I don't know. I'm just trying to make a connection. I'm not saying that God said that, but it is possible that maybe that's why he was showing me that that there is protection in going to college to protect from the draft. So lastly, there was a warning. God was saying to me that on the flip side, he didn't say flip side, but on the flip side, sometimes when money comes, or someone gives you money, it may come with strings attached, meaning they may want you to do something. And that's the way that God put it to me. It's like they may want to have or own your influence. Like you hear a lot of preachers talk about how they can't accept money from everywhere, because if they do, then it's like, okay, now someone else owns the pulpit, and you're going to be preaching what others want you to preach. So it's like that. But since the whole dream, and this is what God, that's what God is saying, because I feel him right now, that you may have monies coming. It might be a government program that's giving you the money. Maybe you have a 501c3. Maybe it could be on that level, or it could be, on a household level, some type of assistance. It appears that it's coming to be a time, or yet even the time might now be, as of right now, where the money is coming with strings attached, and they are expecting you to act or say or be a certain way. And God is saying you might have to give that type of money up. Okay. So there's a lot going on. There was a lot going on in this dream. Basically, a lot going on. So it's about the social services, and basically, yeah, you got to do what you got to do, and what you need to do. I'm not making any judgments on, if you need financial assistance. I've needed it in the past. So I can't, I'm not, pointing my finger at anybody, but God just wants to prepare his people that, they're not going to play with you. They're going to take, if you don't do what you're supposed to do, they're looking for people to get off the system. It's always been that way, but it's getting ratcheted up basically. And God is saying, do not mess up on their rules, because they're not going to give you any, they're not going to take any excuses. So that's one. But on the flip side of that, there may come a time where you might have to say, well, I can no longer accept this money because they're going to want me to be or act a certain way that goes against God's will. And I trust God enough that if I lose this money from this side, God is going to make a way, provide, because he's a provider. So there's like a dichotomy going on there. See that? I use a big word. There's like, and hopefully I use it the right way. There's like a dichotomy going on. On one hand is like, do what you need to do to get that money. But then on the other hand is, well, they might want you to do or say or denounce something or whatever. And it goes against God or his morals or whatever it is, that you might have to just say, I can no longer accept this money anyway. Okay. And the third thing that I sandwiched in the middle, for whatever reason, God wants he wants black folks to know that the education thing, because it's been like talked about a lot, like about, with the passing of MJW. With his passing, it's been talked about a lot that, that's what put, colleges on, black folks' radar, this, so on and so forth. And it helped to magnify that movement, but it was already a movement within itself, and it was already a move of God that God had started way back when. And God is saying that it is still his movement for black people to come up out of poverty. So, all right. Well, I wasn't supposed to be before you long, but I guess I was a little long. So, all right. God bless you. I love you. And until we meet again.